Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so honored and so wicked happy that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell everybody in your family and all of your friends about the podcast. And please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, GoodPod, Stitcher Radio, Ghana, Himalaya, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Gisela Bengfort. She's here to celebrate Wolfy's adventure and unlikely friendship. Before I invite Gisela into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Fly, 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 Little Birdie, beautiful picture book by Jacob Monroe. Fly into the world of a baby bird who is ready to fly everywhere. Fly, 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 Little Birdie is a short and sweet rhyming story about a little bird who flies around to see all of the world and all the beautiful landmarks in it. Read along and discover adventure and the love this little bird has for her parents. This beautiful book was written by Jacob Monroe, who is serving our country as a Marine right now. It's a beautiful book. It's filled with beautiful illustrations. It's written with really catchy rhymes that are fun to read. And the story is really entertaining and really heartwarming. It's a great book to add to your family library. Fly, 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 Little Birdie by Jacob Monroe. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Big Problems, Little Problems, written by Ben Feller. Would you like to make solving life's problems a little easier for your kids and for you as a parent? Well, this is a picture book for you. Big Problems, Little Problems is a tale of how to conquer frustration no matter what the problem may be. It's a story of how a dad teaches his son how to avoid getting frustrated by having patience and perspective. It offers a surprising reminder of how children can teach grown-ups to appreciate what is really important too. It's a heartwarming father-son story that's written for any family with young kids. And if your child is anxious about the start of the school year, then this is the perfect choice. Help your kid turn those big problems into little ones right now. Get your copy of Big Problems, Little Problems at bigproblemslittleproblems.com. Join us right now from beautiful Northern California. Our guest is here today to celebrate two wonderful chapter books. They're part of the Wolfy's Adventure series. The first book is An Unlikely Friendship. Second book, Away from Home. Please welcome to our studios, Gisela Bankford. Hey, Gisela, how are you?
Hi, Chad. Thanks. I am totally excited to be here and to get the chance to talk with you about the children books.
I'm really excited to have you on, too. People could probably notice that we both have accents. I have that Boston accent, and you have an accent that's probably not originally from Northern California. And I learned something from you just before we started recording. English is not your first language. In fact, it's your fifth language.
Yes, it is.
I think as somebody who is struggling just, trying to master one language in the 100 years that I've almost been alive, I just have to tip my hat and salute anybody who is able to be fluent in 2, 3, 5 languages. That's incredible.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm from Switzerland, and Switzerland has 4 national languages itself. So in school, we have to talk a second language. We can't just use the one we're growing up with. And then, of course, in high school, you can choose another one. And now, actually, my nieces in Switzerland, they learn English in 3rd grade.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I know.
That's there's still here in the States not learning a different languages is not embraced the same way it is in other parts of the world. And could you just, and I took Spanish in high school because I had to. When I met my beautiful wife, whose first language is Spanish, I had zero, recall of what I learned. I'm still not fluent in Spanish, but I can get by when I'm in a Spanish-speaking country. Can you just, before we jump into talking about Wolfy's adventures, just give a little encouragement to the parents out there who are listening to encourage their kids to learn a second language and the advantages and the benefits of learning different languages?
Absolutely. Kids are like sponges, and learning, if you have a choice to put them in a kindergarten where they speak Mandarin or Spanish, do it. Mm-hmm. Do it, because they soak it up like eating bread. It's not an effort. Later on in life, it comes much more an effort to learn. And even if you don't speak it perfectly, you have it stored in your little computer. It's called the brain. And it never goes away. Mm-hmm. It never goes away. And do it. It's such an importance. I think it widens your language skill, not just the English, any other language you learn later on. It's so much easier because your brain is elastic, and it's great. Do it.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate.
Yeah, and one of the things that I noticed, because I took my educational magic show down to Puerto Rico, and I toured in Spanish. And when I was driving around the country, again, not fluent, but I would try to think in Spanish instead of,
Yes.
I was trying to think. And I started looking at the world in a slightly different way. My perspective changed a bit, and I thought that was really cool. As somebody who can speak 5 different languages, is that something that you find that as you're thinking in Swiss or in English or in German, that you're kind of perceiving things slightly differently?
Absolutely. And I think it gives you a little bit empathy with someone that is in another country, that tries to talk, that tries to communicate. And it gives you the empathy, because you know how hard it is to come to a place where you're sidelined because you can't jump in a discussion, and you can't have your word out. It isolates you. Mm-hmm. And I do think it really opens people's mind and make them more tolerant toward different people.
Yeah, so important. So let's jump into Wolfy's adventures. Tell us a little bit about Wolfy and what kind of adventures we're going to experience.
Well, Wolfy's adventure, it happened actually during the pandemic when I couldn't see my granddaughter, and she asked me to write down some of those stories. And some of the stories are real events that happened to us while I was out in nature with her. And we always discuss things when we see some things, a coyote or a bird struggling. I have the discussion with her, why do you think that happens? Or why do you think he does this or that? So we had always, and we Googled, and we, expanded our knowledge with nature and animals. And nature and animals always has been my total passion. Mm-hmm. Since very little, my dad grew up with Charles Darwin's books, mm-hmm. and he knew every plant by the Latin name, by the common name, and animals, and so it's in my blood. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, why don't I write that down as kind of a family heirloom? And I did. I started to write down, and then I thought, well, I need some main characters. And we're feeding birds in the backyard, and as you know, it's a coexistent. If you do that, you have rats. Mm-hmm. They come and eat some seeds too. And then you have, their enemies. So I had that red shoulder hog in my backyard, and I had those rats. And then I thought, you know what? It's like in real life. Animals can bond a friendship, sometimes very unlikely. There is a cheetah who befriended a cat, or an antelope where usually they would eat them, but they became friends in true stories. So I thought, I want to give them a chance to become friends. So unusual circumstances forces them to make a decision, and the rat has to put all her trust in whatever the rat shoulder tells her, and overcome the fear. And they become friends. And then, of course, they have to explain that to their parents, to their families. And when you bring someone total different into your family, that can spark some fiery discussions. And not always is it a great acceptance right away. So it's their journey to go through all that and to figure out what really matters to them. And it's when you come to crossroads, and kids come to crossroads too, right? Maybe they are not as significant as, do I'm going to marry someone from the US and follow him with 2 kids? It's more like, can I trust this other kid? Can that be my new friend? Can I trust them with a secret where I have a hard time to talk with my parents because I'm maybe ashamed or not so sure about it? And so kids have to find that trust in others too. And this is about trust, really. We're a trustworthy society, and sometimes we fail, and that should never discourage us to try again. To never give up.
Yeah, this is neat. These are important lessons for kids to learn. Important lessons for us to talk about with our kids. And I think
absolutely,
when we're having those conversations, and you were mentioning going into nature with your granddaughter, and here it is, your granddaughter's looking up to your one of the most important persons in your granddaughter's life. And you are taking the time to be with her. And you're taking the time to say, what do you think? I'm curious about what you're thinking. I want to know what it is that interests you. I want to know what you're curious about. And in asking those questions, we're letting our grandkids, our kids know that they're pretty important to us. I think that's a really empowering message.
I do think we need to treat them as an equal in a way when we talk with them. Don't talk down to them. Talk like a real communication. And I have just the most fabulous talks I had with my grandkids, because they look at the things we've been taught to look at one single way. They look with a fresh eye. They haven't been taught. They're untinted. They have that fresh thinking, and they can turn some things and look it from the other side and like, oh wow, I haven't given thoughts to this. And it's like really so refreshing to me. And that's why I put questions in it. And I wanted to know what kids have to say. And when I do readings, it's so much fun what kids have to say. And I do readings about, in the second book, I use superpowers. We always think we need the Marvels, Batman, Spider-Man, but some of our very pets we have, like take your beagle, has the ability to smell 100,000 times more than we do. They can rescue people under avalanches. They can smell cancer. They can detect seizures, and all that. when you look at it, it's amazing the abilities they have. And I truly think we don't give them enough credit for this amazing powers they have and what they give to us. At the end of the day, there are 3 significant things I learned from my dog before he died. I had a border collie and he died during the pandemic. And it was probably the most powerful dog I had in where I could see he had thought things through. And it was unconditional love. Don't hold a grudge against someone because it wears you down much more than the person you're upset with. And the most significant one is living in the moment. We have tendency always thinking, oh my God, what I have so much to do tomorrow. I can't talk to you right now. Or we have luggage from the past and there's no future in the past. We have to learn to live in this moment. I'm trying to live in this talk we're having right now and hope that some parents or take the time to talk with their kid. Don't worry about tomorrow so much. It's so important to have those conversations, to hear, to listen.
I absolutely agree. And the wisdom that we can pass on, especially grandparents can pass on to their grandkids, because grandparents have a very different relationship with their grandkids. And, you're able to give them a little bit more rope and let them experiment a little bit more and let them get away with more. And
more time.
More time.
You got more time.
Yeah. Speaking of time, you've led a fascinating life. You shared with us briefly here that you came to the United States. You shared with me before we started the interview that you met your second husband, and the third date you were engaged, and then you immigrated here to the United States with your 2 kids and his 2 kids. And what a whirlwind. And in addition to writing children's books and being a grandmother, you've been a successful businesswoman. I understand you created your own salad dressing?
Yes. Yes, I did.
That's incredible. I've never met the inventor of salad dressing. Can you just tell us a little bit about it? I'm fascinated by that.
Well, I had to, it's when you do a salad dressing fresh, it's something totally different than you want to have a lifespan in a shelf. So I was 9 months in a laboratorium. I hope I said that right. In a labor to testing what ingredients I had to put less in or more, because after a week or 2, like the curry in it got overpowered by the lavender or the mustard or the pepper, so you had to change to take some out at the beginning because you knew with time it grew. And it is life. It has life, you put spices in and you take a little bit out and you try to leverage that it's yummy. And I think about life, it's that way too, we have to take some bad things out and add the good things. And when we see this really works, add a little bit more of that.
Yeah, just like life. Yes, it's adding these ingredients and getting a little bit more of this person and maybe a little bit less of that person. And so much fun. I think your grandkids are so lucky that not only that they have you, but that you're so willing to share these experiences with them.
They're really a light to us too. And I have to admit that when you're a younger mom and parents, you're so busy that you sometimes overlook very important times in their life, because you always, like I said, you always look, the next thing, what I have to do, I can't talk. Can we talk about that later on? So what I had with our kids, we had 4 kids at the table, and especially when they were teenagers, it was sometimes hard to reach them. So we had a rule at the dinner table where we always had to be there. No phones. And we had a rule that nothing is a taboo. They could talk about everything they wanted to. This may be some things that happened at school. It could have been sex. It could have been drugs that they were want to talk about, or some incident was. And what we had to, two of my kids went with someone to school who committed suicide, which is a devastating thing. And it is so important because they're so paralyzed, they don't want to talk about that. And I wanted this, I don't know if we have time anymore, but with the things going on in school, you know, we bring kids and grandkids to school right now, and it's so worrisome for parents because you know you can't tell them 100%. I bring you to a really safe place where you learn and you have fun. It's always that underlining worried. And there is one thing that really, really is important. Talk with your kid. Talk with your kid. For example, after the Texas shooting, I asked my granddaughter, are you guys having lockdown trails in your school? She's here in San Jose, California. And she said, what is that, Nana? She's 7. And I said, you know, where you have to pretend that there's someone coming that's not so nice. And she said, oh yeah, Nana, we have that. And I said, so what you doing? And she said, well, we all have to hide that when the door opens, he can't see us. And I started bawling. I was so, she never talked about this before. And so you need to address it. Don't think because they don't talk about it, they haven't heard of it. They have it in school. They heard it from friends, because some friends have older siblings. They talk about it. And the younger kid hears it but doesn't really understand. So talk with your kids. Such an important tool you have. It's the most important tool, I think. You know, the gifts you get later on in life, you don't remember as a kid the gifts you get. But you do remember the time you spend and the laughters and tears you had together with talking about things. And make it maybe a dinner session, or make it a lunch or a breakfast, whatever works for the family. Make it some things where all talk about their day or their excitement or worrisome, and nothing is a taboo. I would say this is one of the most important in our time to do together.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons, it's the reason why I started the Reading with Your Kids podcast. I knew that reading with kids was important, and it helps kids learn how to read. I didn't realize how much it affected their, their vocabulary, and I didn't realize how much it helped in terms of building comprehension and whatnot. But I did know that the conversations I was able to have with my now adult kids when they were 14 and 16 and 18 and now 26 and 29, those conversations started. It started with my son when he was in the womb, because I started reading to my son when he was in the womb.
Absolutely, yes.
So stupid, but I said,
no.
I read somewhere that this helps, so we're going to do it. And we read from the moment that, read together from the moment that he came into the world, same with my daughter. And those conversations we had, like the conversations families can have reading Wolfy's Adventures, are the foundation that our conversations about drugs and alcohol and relationships and trying to buy a house and all those things, those conversations start when your babies are 1 and 2 and 3 years old.
Yeah, Wolfy's Adventure really touches that, because I do put my life events in it. And it touches diversity, it touches courage, it touches everything you can imagine what is important for you. And the questions I pose there are really intent to spark conversations, and sometimes it leads away from the book, because sometimes kids come with some things when there is some bullying in it. And I had a mother telling me, I suddenly heard from my kids that it's bullied at school, and it never said a word to me. But because it was safe for the kid to talk, since it happened in the book, so it's great. Questions and talking, reading with your kid, and I do think it's fun. The animal behavior are actually factual. I study them, and I bring him in a way that it's not like lecture. It's kind of fun a little bit, and I hope an unlikely friendship and away from home, and soon the third will be kind of a trilogy. Can lighten some great discussions at home and make some nice memories with parents and kids and readers and.
Absolutely. Well, I know people need to know where they can go to find out more about Wolfy's adventures and more about you.
I have a website. It's wolfisadventure.com. And you can buy the book in Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Copperfield, Target. I have seen it in so many places where you can get it. Just put in Wolfy's Adventure, and then An Unlikely Friendship, or Away from Home, or my name, Gisela Bankford. And hope you take the time and have fun with it.
Wonderful. We've had a great time speaking with the author of Wolfy's Adventure, Gisela Bankford. Gisela, thank you so much for being with us.
Jed, thanks so much for having me. I had a great time. Take care, have fun in Boston, and stay cool.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. It will be episode 1500. And our guest will be Sarah Ward. She'll be celebrating our NICU journey. That is the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Hey, if you're the author of a fantastic children's book, we would love to help you celebrate the book and let the world know all about it. There's so many ways that we can help spread the word about your book. You can be a guest here on the podcast. Being a guest is fun. It's easy. It doesn't cost a thing. You can also submit your book to our Certified Great Read panel. And if they believe that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a Certified Great Read. Also, you can take part in our monthly promotion program. And we will celebrate your book with commercials on the podcast. We'll be sending out messages to our 100,000 plus social media followers. We'll display your book on our nationwide network of digital pedestrian billboards. And we will have your book on display at whatever live event we will be participating in the given month. Learn all about these opportunities by going to readingwithyourkids.com, clicking on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page, and scrolling on down to the various services. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we're going to start by thanking our guest, Gisela Bengfort. Please be sure to check out her great middle grade series, Wolfy's Adventures. Also want to thank our sponsors, Ben Feller. Big Problems, Little Problems. A great book for you and your kids. Also want to thank Jacob Monroe. Please be sure to check out Fly, 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 Little Birdie. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Nicole Bell Castro, Mirabella Q, Rain Pan. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be with you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.